My name is Alexis, and I want to share my story with you guys. I'm a recovering addict. I had a really normal childhood, not one that you would, uh, not the type of childhood that you would correlate with somebody who's going to become an addict. I was pretty good at making friends. I had lots of friends from all different kinds of groups. I was a cheerleader, straight A student. My creative writing teacher called me the female Edgar Allan Poe. I had my poetry published when I was 15. I was invited to read my poetry on the lawn of the Capitol building in Washington. I didn't do drugs. Lots of my friends joked that I was the Virgin Mary because I had high moral standards. And so things were pretty normal, my family thought that I would be the one that would go to college and be successful and not have problems, and I was the one they didn't have to worry about. And so my mom had MS, and she did really well in the beginning, but she started to get sicker as I went to college. She was in a wheelchair, and then from there, permanently bedridden. Long story short, when I came home for Christmas break, met somebody that was in recovery, and I was rekindling a relationship with my dad, who I hadn't really been around since I was 4 or 5. And he was a recovering addict. And so I think I had a curiosity about addiction and like how it drives people to make the choices they make, and how somebody can go from being successful to being an addict. And boy, did I find out. Somewhere along the way, this friend who became my boyfriend, we decided that we would do a pill together so that I could understand what it feels like. And so we went and got an Oxy. And it was just 20 milligrams to split between the two of us. So it's not like it was some ridiculous, huge amount of drugs. A lot of people think that you have to use large amounts of drugs to become an addict, or that you have to do it several times, or that you can just follow the prescribing information and everything will be okay. And none of that's true, as I quickly found out. So I thought, like a lot of people, that you would have to do it multiple times to experience withdrawal. And instead, I woke up the very next day very sick. Sore all over, anxiety, like this feeling of sadness. And little did I know that was extremely mild. Like, withdrawal can get much worse. I figured that out. So within about a month's time, I went from being a college student and having straight A's and having a job. I managed the grocery stores on campus, and I was the student manager. And I went from being a creative and productive person with lots of friends to I was a junkie. Like, I took my textbooks back to the bookstore and sold them back so that I could have money to buy drugs. I lost my job because I stole from the register so that I could have money to buy drugs. Pretty soon I quit school and moved in with my boyfriend, and started borrowing money from my mom, it was crazy to me that she was giving me money, because she was always very smart with her money, and the type that, like, if you want $5 from me, you better have a good excuse. And I think, looking back on it, that she was just very concerned. I think that she knew that I had a drug problem, and it was when the opiate epidemic was exploding in Tennessee, because this was 2005, and so pharmacies were getting robbed and things like that. And I think that she was afraid that if she didn't give me the money, that I would be one of those people robbing pharmacies and doing that type of thing. And so over about a month's time, so this is now about 4 months into my addiction, I borrowed $12,000 from my mother and put every bit of it up my arm. I went from snorting it to shooting it like super quick. That didn't take any time at all. You lose hope is what happens. You just lose hope, and it's like, if I'm going to be doing the drugs, I might as well really do it. So I did. And the way that my brother was taking care of my mom because she was really sick, and I was too busy chasing pills to take care of her. And so I always had an excuse, why I couldn't be there. Unless I needed money. And so, my brother had no idea that she was lending me all this money. And the way that he found out was, the electric company came to turn off the power at the house because there was not enough money in the account to pay the bill. And, I think my mom was really afraid to tell him that she'd been lending me the money. And, I look at it though, like now anyways, I look at it like I stole it from her. Like, she gave me permission to have the money. She gave me the money, but really, like, I might as well have stolen it because she was, I was too selfish to see it at the time, but she was in a mindset where she was really worried about me. She had enough to worry about because she was very sick. And so pretty much at her weakest, most vulnerable point, there I am asking for money. And it was very hard for her to say no. She didn't say no. And so my brother was furious with me. Lots of my family were furious with me. That's how they found out that I was on drugs, like in an undeniable way. And so I was kind of banished from the house. Like, I wasn't allowed to see my mom. There was like a lot of hurt and anger and damage done that lasted for years. And within about the next year, my mom got really sick. She had several strokes. It got to the point where she was paralyzed. She couldn't speak. She couldn't feed herself. She couldn't take care of herself. And here my brother is having to raise his daughter and his stepdaughter and his new baby and take care of my mom. And like, when I say take care of my mom, I mean like giving her baths, changing her diapers, like things that a son shouldn't have to do for a mother. So, anyways, so being that I was in survival mode or extremely selfish mode, like the only thing that I worried about, thought about was how to get high. Like, it progressed quickly from just doing oxys to, it's like, okay, you're going through withdrawal and you can't find a pill, but somebody's got some meth, so let's shoot some meth today. Or coke, or just whatever. Like, I've done pretty much every drug. And so things really spiraled out of control really quickly. It doesn't take a lot of time. This is not something that builds and takes long amounts of time to become a junkie. Like, it happened quick, and normally does. And so 4 or 5 months into my addiction, here I am. My family has completely disowned me. Like, I owe $5,000 worth of scholarship money to school because I dropped out of school. I have track marks on my arms. I'm 80 pounds. It was a very bad situation, and only got worse. Within about 6 or 8 months, I was homeless. The boy that I started using drugs with was still my boyfriend. Like, I guess he had compassion and understanding because he was an addict too. And I think I'm really lucky that if I was going to do drugs, that it was with him, because in a lot of ways he protected me throughout that whole time. I know that sounds crazy, like, protected you, he was doing drugs with you, but he did a lot of the dirty work so that I didn't have to. And so yeah. At some point though, things got really bad. We were ripping people off, robbing people, breaking into houses. I got a job as a stripper because it was the only job I could hold, because what place wants to employ you and pay you to puke in the bathroom 50% of the time that you're there, and then call in because you're chasing a pill the rest of the time. So the only job I could hold was as a dancer. And so I did that for a while. And then at some point we decided, you know, like, we're homeless and we have no family because nobody wants to be involved with us at all for good reason. And being around our family just causes them like more stress and problems. So we had a bunch of friends that had gone into the methadone clinic and were holding a job. And, you know, to us, like, at the time, that seemed like the best that we could hope for. So it seemed like almost like an answered prayer. So we moved to Chattanooga and lived out of our car for 10 months while we were in the methadone clinic. And I think we were really fortunate to be in Chattanooga because there was a homeless shelter down there that served meals 3 times a day. I think if it hadn't been for that place, we probably would have starved to death, no joke. And I worked as a dancer in Chattanooga and was not making very much money. I was very skinny, very sickly, very unhealthy looking. I was not a person you would want to dance from. So I think that probably had a lot to do with it. And so after we'd been in the methadone clinic for a while, we went in with the intentions of only being in there for a year. And we had counselors, and they were going to do random drug testing and med counts. And it sounded like a completely foolproof situation where, like, I'm going to be on a stable dose. It sounded like a great deal. And so when you go into the methadone clinic, they start you off on 30 milligrams at the place I went to. You could go up 10 milligrams every other day. All you had to do was ask the nurse at the dosing window. And sure enough, she would give you your 10 milligram increase up to a certain point. At 120, they would start doing serum levels. And then that's a little, like, the addict in you is like, well, don't go above 120, because if they see that you're not metabolizing it fast enough, they will decrease you. So I went up to 120 really quickly and stopped there because I was afraid that they would decrease me if my serum levels were high. And then after we'd been in there for a while, probably after we'd been in there for about a year and a half, we decided that it was time to decrease. And so what they don't tell you is that you can go up 10 milligrams every other day without doctor approval, but when it comes time to decrease, it's 5 milligrams a week. You have to fill out paperwork that has to be signed by the doctor. The doctor's only there on Mondays. If he doesn't sign your paperwork, then your paperwork is going to sit there until he does. And until it gets signed, you are not getting a decrease. So, of course, they lose your paperwork all the time, or the doctor doesn't sign it, or whatever. Or you need counseling before you decrease, or you're just not ready, or, you know, there's always an excuse. So that ordeal lasted about 6 years. And we did do well as far as staying off all other drugs while we were in there. But coming off methadone is like being in hell. I would rather come off heroin. I would rather die than come off methadone again. It would take us 3-4 months to get them to give us a 5 milligram decrease, and then it would be back to the games of, we've lost your paperwork. So after we'd been in there about 6 years, we decided that we wanted to move back home to Tennessee because things had gotten a little bit better with his family. And they were really proud of us because we had this appearance that we were doing well because we were both holding jobs. And I'd gotten a job at factory, cleaning the factory, and he had a job doing powder coating or something. And I worked during the days at Goodies, which is like a little clothing store. And so by appearances, we were doing really well. But when it came time to get off of methadone, we had no idea what we were in for. Like, it was hell. I just can't think of another way to describe it. And so we got tired of the clinic games, though, and started decreasing ourselves. And we got down to 15 milligrams, and we thought, okay, like, this is a very low dose. we should be able to just quit and be okay. No, we were sick for 3 months after we quit. And I'm pretty convinced that, like, it doesn't matter how much you wean down, you're going to be sick. Like, pretty badly sick. When I say sick, I mean, like, my muscles ached, my bones hurt, high anxiety, depression. It was horrible. I didn't sleep right for probably 6 months after leaving the clinic. And anyhow, at some point, we still were going through withdrawal, and even, like, occasionally would try to take some hydros to take the edge off the withdrawal, and that didn't help. That didn't affect it at all. It was pointless. It was like a waste of money. And so we found out I was pregnant. And so that was really scary, because here we are, two addicts. Like, we're very obviously addicts because we're still sick and still struggling, and we had no idea what to do. And so I told the doctor, you know, we recently quit the methadone clinic and we're still very sick. And, like, basically, I want to go to rehab or be in a situation where I can't relapse. And, so they informed me, this was in 2012, they informed me that if I went through withdrawal, that the baby could be born retarded, or that I could miscarry, and that if I relapsed, that DCS would take the baby from me, so I couldn't fail not even one single drug screen for anything. And considering that I'd taken hydros a little bit here and there, and was still sick, I was very scared. And so they told me that basically the only thing you can do is we will refer you to this doctor who gives Subutex, and that will keep DCS off your back, and it will ensure that you don't relapse, and it will stop the withdrawal so that your baby has a better chance of being healthy. So that's what I did. It seemed like the best option at the time. And so I went to the Subutex doctor and explained right away that, you know, I'm just going through withdrawal because I quit methadone. Like, I've had a little bit of hydros here and there, but for the most part, like, I'm clean. I'm just still sick. For those of you that don't know, like, methadone withdrawal can last months. And you might even have a couple of days where you feel better, and then lo and behold, it comes back. So I went to the Subutex doctor and told him that I just need a minimal amount of medication, that I'm an addict. If you give me huge amounts of medication, I'm going to take it. And it was really shocking to me, because right away the doctor was like, well, we start everybody off on 16 milligrams a day. 16 milligrams of Subutex every day is a lot of drugs, like a lot. Like, it would have taken the tiniest little piece of Subutex to stop my withdrawal. And instead they gave me 16 milligrams a day. And even after I explained, like, I don't need that. I don't want that. And he's like, well, we're going to give you the prescription for 16 milligrams because that's what we do. So I went and got it filled. We decided that the best way to make sure that I didn't overtake my medication was we would sell half of it and then split the other half. And so that's what we did. And so the whole time that I was pregnant, I'm asking my doctor, like, is this really okay? Like, what's going to happen to my baby? And they told me that, you know, sometimes the babies have withdrawal from the Subutex and sometimes they don't. And it just is a case-by-case basis. It's different for everybody. So I literally was taking like a milligram of Subutex every day, which just proof that I didn't need the 16, because 1 milligram, I was okay. And so the baby was born. They do this thing called the Edinburgh scale, which is where they, I think that's what it's called, where when normally the baby is in the hospital for 3 days, if you're coming off of an addictive medication and there's a chance that the baby could go through withdrawal, then they during that 3 days, they'll take the baby to the nursery at night and score him. And so like a 6 or below is a good score, and a 6 to a 12 is a high score. And so for the first 2.5 days that he was in the hospital, he scored really well. We didn't see any signs of withdrawal. He was getting like 1s and 2s. And they score on things like excessive sucking, or like if they suck their thumb a lot, they'll give them a point for that. Or if they, like a higher score would be like a really high-pitched, constant crying, or failure to thrive, like if they're not going to eat, things like that. But he was eating well, doing really well, and getting 1s and 2s. But in the middle of the night before day 3, they took him to the nursery. He had 1 poopy diaper, like diarrhea, and they scored him a 12. They took him to the NICU the next day. He was there for 30 days, and they started him off on 100 micrograms of morphine. So he started his life on morphine, and so that really sucked. And he's doing really well now, though. Like, he's very smart. He's very well behaved. Doesn't seem to be having any problems so far, and he's 5. So after he was born, immediately went on birth control, because I did not want to have an experience like that again. I did not want to have another baby while I was on drugs. And I mean, even though it was doctor prescribed, like, it's still a drug. Like, and it showed me right away that, yeah, it does affect them. Like, I felt like my doctors had kind of just lied to me. Like, why would you not just say, like, yeah, he's going to go through withdrawal and we're going to put him on morphine? I don't know if, I don't know the reasons for not telling the truth, but anyhow, so went on birth control and was, determined not to have another baby until I was off the Subutex and completely clean for, you know, my hope would be clean for a year before I had another kid. However, when my son was 4 months old, we found out that I was pregnant again. Still on Subutex, pregnant again. Even though I took birth control, even though we did everything we were supposed to do, here comes another baby. So, same situation. The doctor told me, you know, you just need to stay on the Subutex. And so, I stayed on the Subutex and did what they told me to do, because I did not want DCS involved in my life, and I didn't want to go through withdrawal, because they had already told me that you can't withdraw while you're pregnant. It'll kill the baby. We now know that's different. There's a doctor at UT in Knoxville that has opened a rehab center for pregnant women, and yeah, you can go through withdrawal. It's as long as you have you know, medical supervision, people around to watch and make sure that you're okay. Yeah, it's doable. And so, but they didn't have that available at that time. So I had my second baby and was still on Subutex. And he actually, I was on a higher dose with him. And oddly enough, he was in the hospital for 5 days. They didn't put him on any medication. He was totally fine. It was like really obvious that he was not going through any sort of withdrawal. So they started to put him in the NICU, and my husband and I both talked to the nurse and explained that, you know, this was not what we wanted, and that if he had problems, we would bring him back, and he didn't have problems, so we didn't bring him back, and they let him go home. And so now he is 4, and my other son is 5, and they're both healthy and doing well. And I feel like I'm really lucky, very lucky. So anyways, when my second son was about 6 months old, we were invited to go to church, and we get to this church, and this preacher is talking about how he's a recovering addict. And it was like, maybe this is a good thing. Like, maybe this would be a church that we need to go to. So we would go back, like, randomly. And then last year, so in December of 2016, like, I had started taking gabapentin and really abusing it. I would take, like, handfuls of Benadryl or cold medicine or whatever I could, do. It's just gotten to that point where I had lost hope again. Like, I felt like a terrible parent. My mother had passed away. My mother passed away when I was about 21, and we never got to resolve things because I wasn't allowed in her life for good reason. And she wasn't able to speak anyhow. And so I had, like, lots of guilt and shame that really just kept me stuck in that cycle of using. And I had no coping skills. Like, the way I coped was to get trashed. And so things were getting really bad. And it was to the point where, like, I, my doctor would give me gabapentin. I would eat like 90 of them in a day. So they would all be gone in 2 or 3 days. And then I would go to a friend and buy all theirs, and then go to another friend and buy all theirs. And I would just be trashed all the time. And I had no friends, no family. Like, I had no relationship with my brother, and I hadn't seen him in over 10 years. And it was not great. And so I had several suicide attempts, tried to kill myself a lot. I was back to cutting, like, self-mutilation. It was not a good situation, and I'd gotten really depressed. I can remember many times just laying in my laundry room floor asking God to kill me, because I didn't have the courage to do it myself. And I just believed that my family would be better off without me, that maybe if I killed myself, my husband would find somebody who would help him get clean and who would be a good example for my kids, somebody who could love them the right way. So I was really just at my wit's end, and I started praying that God would help me. I can't do it by myself, but I really need help. I wanted to get out of it so bad. And so one day we went to church, and they did this altar call thing, which I had never, like, when they said before, get up and ask for prayer, like, I would not do it. And something inside me just said, like, you might as well try it. Like, you've tried everything else and nothing else has worked, so you might as well just get up and ask somebody else to pray for you. So I go over to the altar, and there's this girl there, and she prays for me. I told her, I've been addicted to drugs for 13 years, and so has my husband. And we both want to be free of this. And so she prayed for us. And like, the strangest thing in the world, 2 days later, my doctor, the person that, has been prescribing me this medication, calls me out of the blue, and she's like, so would you like to go to rehab? And I'm just like, what? And she's like, yeah, if you want to go to rehab, there's a place that your insurance will pay for, and you can go today, but you have to go today. So I hung up the phone. I packed my stuff. I called my husband. We drove straight to his parents' house and informed them that, that drug problem that you thought we took care of, well, we're still addicts. And I'm about to go to rehab, and so it would be great if you would watch the kids so that he can keep working. And oddly enough, like, my mother-in-law was like, okay, I'll do it. And so we drove to Alabama, and I went into treatment. I was there for 15 days, and my life is completely changed. Like, as soon as I got out of rehab, I started going to Celebrate Recovery at my church, and I've met the best friends that I've ever had in my life there. If you had asked me, 17 months ago, where will you be 17 months from now, I would have told you I'll be dead. I'll overdose or I'll kill myself, or my husband's going to get so upset because of all the things I do that he's going to kill me. Like, I will be dead. And instead, I'm a leader of a 12-step group. Very fortunate at the way that my life is different. I have a relationship with my brother now. My brother goes to church with me. My niece and I spend time together probably, 2 or 3 times a week. And my husband and I have a beautiful relationship with each other. Before I went to rehab, I thought I hated him. Like, we would get into arguments and I would literally tell him, I hate you. And I haven't said that in 17 months. Like, I realize now how blessed I am because he stuck by me. And when I came home, he had stayed home, go to work every day, take care of the kids at night, and was weaning himself down off of the Suboxone. And when I got home, I told him, I understand that you're probably not going to be able to quit because you've been doing this for so long, and you don't have the chance to go to rehab, but just don't do it around me. And he was like, no, I already got rid of it all. And he's been clean and sober for 17 months. We both go to Celebrate Recovery. And our lives are completely different. He has a better job now. We don't ever have to stress or worry about how we're going to pay our bills because we don't have to buy pills with that money that we need to pay our bills with. And I just want people to know that no matter what you've done, no matter what choices you've made, no matter how far gone you think you are, God still has a purpose and a plan for you. And, you don't have to resign to this idea that I'm a junkie and that's all I'll ever be. Like, that's not true. Like, you can get better. And, rehab helped me, but my husband's proof that you don't actually have to go to rehab to get better. Like, if rehab's not an option for you, there's still hope. Like, we were hardcore addicted for 13 years. Needle junkies, like, as bad as it gets. And I never would have imagined that my life would be what it is today. Like, never would have imagined it. Like, I actually feel like I'm a good mom now. I get along with my kids. I'm not, like, spanking them all the time because I'm frustrated. Or, we all still have problems. Like, it's not like everything's wine and roses all the time. But, every day that I'm sober is another day that I won. And it doesn't matter what else happens. And, anyways, I just wanted to share my story and to let you guys know that, like, life can be completely different for you. So I just hope that this was helpful to somebody. And if you guys ever need anything or have any questions, just reach out to me. And I'm going to try to use this channel to help people. And if anybody needs advice on how to get through withdrawal without, having to do drugs to get through it, I've got plenty of advice. So I can, maybe not tell you everything, but I can tell you what works for me and what has worked for the ladies in my 12-step group. And I just hope everybody has a blessed day. And thank you for giving me your time and listening to my story. Love you guys.